Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Not So Dumb Blonde, the home of the retired Good Girls Club. Today, I'm so honored to be joined by Brenda Johnston. She is a mentor and a guide for high capacity women who have built success and are sensing it's no longer the full expression of who they are. After more than 2 decades in performance driven corporate and advertising environments, Brenda redefined her relationship to success, identity, and self trust. She now helps women clarify their purpose and strengthen their connection to their inner authority while working at the subconscious and energetic level to transform the beliefs and patterns that shape their choices. Her approach is grounded, discerning, and practical, supporting women to recalibrate how they lead, decide, and move forward in this next chapter of life and business. Her work isn't about hustle, manifestation, or surface level transformation. It's about purpose, identity, nervous system safety, and the deeper recalibration that happens when you've outgrown who you used to be and are stepping into who you're here to actually be. Today, we're going to talk about anxiety versus trusting your intuition, which is something we talk about a ton on this podcast, and why so many women cannot tell the difference. Hello, Brenda. How are you?
Hello, I'm so excited to be here, to be back here.
Oh my gosh, me too. For all of my listeners here today, Brenda had joined me on the podcast. We were just talking about this about 3 years ago, and we were just talking about how much we've grown. So I'm so excited to catch up, see where you are now, and go over this topic that is just so important that so many women are asking about all the time. But before we do that, I'd love to just go ahead and have you give my listeners a little bit of an elevator pitch about how you got to where you are now and what you're doing right now.
It's not a linear path. It goes like this. But in a nutshell, kind of like what you said, I've really over the past, I guess, 8 years of doing this, I would say in the past 3 years, I've really honed in on working with those women who've achieved some level of success, but they really feel like they've outgrown that version of success that they built, which I understand deeply because that's what I had done. And so I'm helping them to get clear on what's next and really trust themselves again, untangling the patterns that keep showing up and also slowing them down. And that's why I love working at the subconscious and energetic level because we can create change relatively quickly that actually lasts, and our subconscious and our nervous system work together. So for me, that's a big piece of why I love what I do.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the most beautiful things that I know with your work, a lot of times when I'm speaking with women, it's always this idea, not even an idea, but our body knows before our brain knows. So the subconscious picks up on things so much quicker than our brain does. And I think sometimes where some of this nervous system dysregulation comes is just not being able to pair the two. It's kind of like glitching out and it's like I'm feeling one thing, I'm thinking one thing, how do I get it to align? So, my first question for you would be what does your work look like day to day when you're working with women and trying to help them really decipher the difference between what's happening at the subconscious level and trying to align that with what's happening consciously?
I love that question. And I always say, I have a phrase that I always use. It's very similar. I say, energy speaks before our mouth even opens because we're constantly broadcasting, and that broadcast comes from how our nervous system is doing. So, for a lot of the women who come in to work with me, a big piece of the issues that we're dealing with actually comes down to people pleasing. And so that's a massive thing that can interfere with somebody's ability to trust her intuition because people pleasing essentially is training our nervous system to prioritize external safety over what we know to be true. And so our intuition gets very muted because at some point in our life, acting on that intuitive guidance might have led to conflict. It might have led to rejection. It might have led to like a withdrawal of love. And so then the subconscious decides, oh, yeah, it's way safer to scan other people than to listen to what's going on inside of me. And honestly, till we clear, I don't like saying clear, but until we deal with that survival pattern, that whole just trust your intuition, it's going to feel impossible because the system equates intuition with some kind of social risk. And so to add to that, you have a lot of women who identify as empaths, right? They're highly attuned. It's a highly attuned nervous system. So they can feel shifts in other people's moods, in energy. They have very quick reactions to things. And the challenge is if that sensitivity developed in an environment where things didn't feel emotionally safe or predictable, that turns into that hyper attunement. Brings us back to the people pleasing thing. And so they start managing other people's emotions and soothing things over and trying to say the right things and being agreeable. And on the surface, they look kind and they look supportive, but underneath, they're not able to regulate their nervous system, and I understand this because that was me for most of my life. I would say until I was, like, 40. I'm 51 now, so for a good chunk of my life,
Yeah.
I was incredibly attuned to everybody else in the room, and I was constantly adjusting myself to make sure everybody else felt good so that I didn't feel unsettled. And that is a massive piece of what I'm doing with women. I'm helping their systems feel safe enough so they don't have to manage the room anymore, because how are you going to get clear on your purpose and move forward if you're constantly managing the room? If your nervous system learns, I can be okay, even if other people are uncomfortable, then you stop abandoning yourself.
Mm.
Then that inner guidance becomes clear.
I love that, and this is something that I think so many women, because we've been socialized, absolutely socialized, and we're rewarded for that behavior, and sometimes we are reprimanded for doing the opposite, right? And I think human beings, were all very rewards motivated, right? So if we are not people pleasing and the initial response is discomfort, because initially when you're working through that, right, it is a little bit uncomfortable, then it's kind of hard to want to stick to it when you could just people please and then get liked, still be liked, not necessarily for the long term reasons that might be beneficial for us, right? But
Exactly.
in the moment. And so I just find it very interesting. And I think the work that you're doing is so important. And one of the things that I talk about a lot on the podcast is complex trauma too, and navigating how that kind of plays a role into it. Because, like you mentioned, a lot of this conditioning is because we have learned to behave that way in order to survive. It protected us in some sort of way, right? So it sounds like a lot of what you're doing is kind of helping women rewire and recondition. What are some of the initial steps that you would take with a client or a woman that you're working with to kind of help her figure out and differentiate what's happening in her body? I know nervous system regulation is crucial, but what does it look like?
Well, for us and from the lens that I'm working through, we're really focused on getting her to understand what she feels like. So, intuition comes from when your system is regulated. Intuition is very clear, it's very specific. And fear, on the other hand, starts to come through as like chaotic and urgent and catastrophic. And so we're starting foundationally. We're saying, okay, so do you know what you feel like? And I'm telling you, 90% of the women who start working, they don't know what they feel like. And what I mean by that is, I call it your no-no feeling. Like if you're walking down a dark alley and your intuition is trying to warn you, do you know what the no-no feeling is? And most of them don't. So it starts by helping them understand, like, okay, this is typically what intuition is going to feel like versus this is what fear is going to feel like. So intuition is like a calm inner knowing. Even if it's a big decision, you're just like, oh yeah, this feels right. Or it's you're clear on something and you don't have this long mental story that you're telling. Or maybe you just feel super grounded in your body. There's no rush to intuition. Whereas the fear is very urgent. The fear in your head sounds like, well, what if this goes wrong? What if I regret this? What if people judge me? We start telling stories. It's immediately because it's in the survival response. So I'm looking for patterns that are coming up for these women because there's always patterns attached to unacknowledged fears.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, all of that resonates so much. And you had mentioned something earlier that made me think of something, but I always say, I know when I'm not listening to my intuition when I start trying to bargain or negotiate with myself.
100%.
Right? Because, like, I'll have this feeling, and then I'm like, "Well, but wait, you don't actually wait, hold on, you don't need to feel that way because so and so," and then it turns into, like, this inner debate with myself where I'm trying to make myself self-gaslighting is really clearly put
Yeah,
what it is.
100%.
And I feel like as women, that's just such a common thing that we all struggle with, and it's so hard to differentiate, and I always wonder because this is one of the biggest questions, and obviously for you too, that I'm getting asked is how do you know the difference between what your intuition is? And I know that intuition is supposed to be calming and, anxiety is fear, but sometimes those things really, really blend together.
Yeah, and sometimes, and this drives me bonkers, when people blanket statement intuition stuff. So when people are like, "Oh, well, just tune into your sacral." We are all unique. We're all designed in a unique way. Okay? So when people are like, "Just feel it," that is a problem because first of all, nobody just decided one day to start ignoring their bodies. Like that didn't just happen. So we have to understand why did we stop listening to our body? And like we said, very often we learn that it wasn't safe. Their body didn't start or their body didn't stop speaking to them. It just learned to speak very quietly. So when we're trying to build this trust back and somebody just says, just feel into it. Most of us haven't even been living in our freaking bodies for most of our life. So if you say just feel it, you're going to frustrate the crap out of somebody because they don't know how to do that.
It's like, what does that actually mean? Like, I have a pit in my stomach, my head hurts, my shoulders tense, I feel like I'm, panicking and I'm having but how do you actually sift through all of that to know how you're feeling? And I just think that that is the perfect example of how, women have just been conditioned to just completely shut off sometimes in order to survive. And one of the things that you mentioned when you were introducing yourself too is helping women really reclaim themselves and figure out where they actually want to go. Part of the reason why I started this podcast is because I got married based on my conditioning and what I thought I was supposed to do, not in accordance of what I wanted. Yeah, and it's so hard to explain that to people because it's like, well, yeah, that's what I always wanted, right? Because we live in a society where it's all about honestly, like who's doing what and if you're, if all your friends are getting married and you're not, or for me that's how I was feeling. Okay, this is what I want, obviously, but nothing felt right to me. I didn't know how to explain to my friends that when I got engaged, I was absolutely mortified. I mean, and I instead of listening to that, I was like, "No, no, no, you're just anxious.
Yeah.
You have a lot of trauma.
Cold feet.
You
It's cold feet.
yeah, it's cold feet. Like you have a lot of trauma." And then from there, it catapulted and opened this whole other world for me where I was like, I've been in sales for 10 years. I'm miserable. And it all fit into like this lifestyle, right? And that marriage, that life was a part of the old lifestyle that I was keeping up. That was a protection image for me to feel safe externally. But the moment that I walked away from my marriage and I was like, I want to become a therapist, like I'm going to screw, the sales life, even though I was, financially taking care of myself. I wasn't living in alignment. And so stepping into this, has been very scary, also very liberating, but it sounds like you're working with a lot of women that are experiencing that. And I would just love to hear more about what some of the common themes are that you're noticing with women, especially like maybe in their 30s and 40s, to see if that might resonate.
Okay, first of all,
So much to unpack there.
your story is very similar to my story. I got married when I was 24 because
Young.
back in the olden days, but back then, that was the thing. Everybody was getting married. And I remember my dad pulling me aside when I got engaged because I had always said, I don't want to get married. And so when we got engaged, he was like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's exactly what I want to do." Yada, yada, yada. Had the corporate job, worked in advertising, had a 6-figure salary. Well, almost. It wasn't quite there when I was in corporate. We had the nice house. We had the motorcycles. We had the nice car. I was dead inside. I didn't understand that that's what it was.
Mhm.
I remember going to see a psychotherapist because I was like, I need help figuring out what my purpose is. I don't understand what's going on. I should be happy because that's what we're told. You should just be happy with what you have. You should be grateful for all the things you have. Looking like from the outside, people would have been like, oh man, she is so successful. I heard that all the time. Oh, you were so successful. You've got the marriage, you've got the corporate career. And I was just like, no. And then after we stayed married for 15 years, I think we were together 18. I would say we stayed
Wow.
together at least 5 years too long. And I was 38 when we got divorced. And I was like, might sound horrible, but that was the best thing I've ever done for myself because that's when I really was able to start leaning into what I wanted to do and go back to school and learn about the brain. While I was working full time, I went back to school full time. So I went to learn about hypnosis. I went to learn about the brain. Like I was doing all these things and I realized I could feel excitement in my body, but I didn't know what it was.
Mm.
I could
'Cause maybe you hadn't
feel
allowed yourself to feel.
no, I never had. And when I started working with people and I was hiring my mentors and things, I remember feeling joy for the first time and I burst into tears because I didn't know what it was.
Wow.
I joked that again, for most of my life, I was like, I don't think I have emotions because I just turned them off. And so for all these women coming in, very much like you, very much like me. It's why I love working with those women who maybe are in transition or they're in the next stage of life or they've completely lost themselves being a parent or being in a relationship. So they come in and they're totally disconnected from their own intuition. But the thing that I see, and there's three things I see a lot, they will overthink simple decisions because their mind is trying to create that certainty that their body can't feel the emotions. They are usually constantly looking outside of themselves for answers. So she's going to be asking everybody, what would you do? She's probably pulling cards daily. She's probably booking intuitive readings every time a decision needs to be made. And not out of a curiosity place, but from not trusting her own signals because she can't feel them. And that's a really slippery slope because I have women that have flat out handed over their inner authority to somebody else. And I get it because younger version of me did that too because I didn't know where to find the answers.
Mm.
So I get it. And the other thing is just coming in feeling totally numb. And the way I used to explain it is I just felt blank. And
Yeah.
when I ask what she wants to create, typically in the beginning, she doesn't know. Because, like we said, we've been taught that wanting more isn't safe. You
Mm.
should just be grateful for what you have.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I those are so good, and I think that it's so good for women to know what the indicators are of maybe when they're not listening to themselves or they're disconnected and their nervous system is not regulated because those are it. I always say, if you are finding yourself asking everyone for advice all the time, doing the tarot readings and, excessively and intellectualizing what you're going through, constantly trying to make the right choice and being afraid of making all these mistakes, that's a big indicator. I think another one is when you're getting these sensations in your body. I remember when I was about to get married and through my marriage, I woke up every single day with a pit in my stomach for 2 years. And I
Same,
remember
girl.
being
Same.
yeah, and I was like, "Is this normal? Somebody help me." And other people might be like, "Well, yeah, I mean, sometimes if it doesn't feel normal to you and your body is not doing well, that's a sign." Another big indicator I've noticed is chronic illness. Like, I was taking myself to the emergency room to get MRIs, they thought I had multiple sclerosis. And because I was like having weird bodily sensations, I was going numb. I mean, and that is all from suppressing my authentic self and not living in alignment with myself and trying to fit this external world. And so, one thing I want women to know is that this is not just as simple as, oh, you take care of your mental health. This is your actual life. Suppressing your emotions and not living in alignment with yourself and connecting with yourself is actually killing us. It's actually killing us.
And not having purpose is killing us. So this is this right here. Again, Same thing. I was having flare-ups. My eyes were like swelling shut. I was getting hives. I had to go do all these tests because they're like, oh, you're having allergic reactions. I lived in London, Ontario at the time, which is all trees, okay? They're like, you're allergic to nature. And
You're
then
like,
they were
"Great,
like,
I'll never leave the house again."
oh, you're allergic to the printing ink that's on the big presses, which is what I did for work. And I was like, that seems weird. For my goodness, a good 15 years, I had to take Reactin every day just to make sure that my eyeballs didn't swell up based on stress. And listen, when stress or emotions aren't completed or processed, the body just doesn't remember. It stores it physiologically and energetically. And over time, that's where it starts showing up as, persistent muscle tension in jaws, in shoulders, in guts, digestive health, hormonal dysregulation, sleep disruptions, like that chronic fatigue, that state where you're wired but you're exhausted, autoimmune issues, inflammatory conditions. I'm still dealing with inflammation based on stress from years ago. It's under control now, but like it takes time to work through that. You don't just wake up one day and have the issue. And that's your body stays in this defense mode, and that slowly drains your energy and that disrupts all the normal stuff. And so I'm seeing a lot of these women who maybe are coming in because they want to talk about purpose or whatever. And we start to realize there's a whole nother layer of stuff related to health issues. And they're like, I didn't even realize that was connected. And I'm like, yeah, like if you want to take this a layer deeper. So part of the energetic profiling method that I've developed is to use human design as a diagnostic lens, not as I'm a manifesting generator. We all in our design, we're all unique. We have 3 specific awareness centers, and each of those has a survival function. And so when an experience overwhelms our system and a fear pattern doesn't resolve, that center basically stays switched on. Your body's trying to protect you. So by looking at somebody's design, I can see what active fears they might actually have that could be contributing to something physical. So I get referrals from several naturopaths when they're working with people who have skin issues, especially. Because when we have the stuff we're storing, where's it going to go if it comes out of your skin?
Wow.
So the 3 centers, we have our survival instincts, unresolved fears like fear of the future or inadequacy or fear of responsibility. Those keep your body scanning for threats. So that's when over time, your system is going to prioritize survival over repair, over digestion, over your immune response. Then we have the emotional center, emotional awareness. So when emotional fears like rejection or emptiness or even intimacy, when those aren't metabolized, when we don't process them, they don't move through us, that loops. And that keeps the stress chemistry very active, which then contributes to inflammation and hormone disruption and fatigue because the body's still processing the past instead of living in the present moment. And then the third one, which is the doozy, our conceptualization center, mental pressure, mental fears. You have to have the right answers. You have a fear of chaos. Maybe like there's up to 20 that we can have. And that can trap the nervous system in this constant analysis. It's looking for things. The mind is like, okay, I need to find a problem. So from an energetic perspective, healing isn't about fixing the body. I would say it's about helping these awareness centers complete these old survival loops so your system can finally move into regeneration. So we
Yes.
can release the past stuff and be present.
There's so much that you hit on there. So, I think a great example of what you're talking about is that at one point in my life, I had a concussion and my vision was going out. And the analogy that my neurovision doctor gave me was that the vision is one of the first things to go because you can survive without it, right? But your brain can't heal. Your body doesn't know how to heal a part of you when it's working in the background to heal other things, right? So you have to work on actually, I think it's the story we tell ourselves and realizing that our bodies are working overtime, still processing things in the past. So when new things are coming up, just like you said, how is our body supposed to have the energy and the bandwidth to do what it's supposed to do for the current moment if it's constantly working in the background in overdrive for everything that's happened in the past? The other thing you mentioned, human design, huge fan of human design, a little too much probably. I just think that I don't know as deep as what you're explaining, but I do know that there's definitely something there. I think that that's very interesting. That makes me definitely, I just want to book a session
We'll
with you.
talk.
I'm like so much to say, but 100% we're all very unique and we all have our individual ways of processing and how we see the world. But you've talked a lot about purpose. And to me, it's so hard for me to understand what even purpose actually means for me. What does it look like to you in your practice, and how do you help women find their purpose?
Okay, so do you mind how old are you? Do you mind if I ask you that?
I'm going to be 36 in a month.
Okay, so you're in an exciting time. Also related to human design, we have life cycles. So from